In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, TIZ is against corruption in the humanitarian aid distribution. TIZ calls for transparency during arrival of aid, transparency during selection of beneficiaries, transparency during distribution of aid, accountability in monitoring the process of aid distribution, and depolitization of aid. Resist, reject, and report corruption now. Transparency International Zimbabwe, a coalition against corruption.
Welcome to Asake Online. My name is Zenzele Ndebele and this is the Breakfast Club. Today in our program we'll be talking to Michael Ndiweni, who is the Executive Director of the Bulawayo Traders and Vendors Association. We know that recently we've been having a lot of discussions and talk about the relocation of vendors from the city center to other parts of town, especially in the western suburbs. And we've had a lot of complaints, comments, people saying it was an unfair move, others saying it's a welcome move, and mixed reactions. So today we have decided to invite the representative of the vendors to get from him what they think about the move, how it has been implemented, and the way forward. Michael, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Ndebele. Good morning or good afternoon, viewers, listeners all over the world.
So for the past 3 weeks or so, we've had this discussion about the relocation of our vendors from the CBD. Tell us from your point of view, how did you welcome this move?
Yeah, thank you, Ndebele. I'll start from maybe not answering your question, but try to give a context in terms of how we understand the whole issue of relocation, or some people call it decentralization. The point of departure will be that as BVTA, over the years, we have been involved in pushing for what we call inclusive city planning and designing. Our primary objective was is to ensure that in terms of urban development, urban planning, there must be an inclusive kind of approach that puts the issues or the interests of the traders at the center of city planning and designing. So in this case, what we're trying to do is that local authorities, including Bulawayo City Council, must have plans that puts the aspirations or the interests of the traders at the center of urban development, what we then some people call inclusive local economic development. So one of our arguments is that vendors must not be an afterthought in terms of city planning and designing. They have to be provided with proper strategic trading spaces or infrastructure, or given spaces to trade, that they will stay there, not be moved, or to say, no, I think vendors now can move from this place to the other place, or now I think here it's not right, let's put them there. So our idea is that there must be permanent infrastructure for traders. So the issue of relocation of 5th Avenue speaks exactly to what we've been arguing about, to say Bulawayo City Council, local authorities must ensure that they put plans that include trading spaces, and this strategic in placing those trading spaces. So in the sense that, let's look at 5th Avenue. Let's just go into your question now. 5th Avenue has been a road. It has been a road, and at some point the road was closed and vendors were placed there. And someone thought of traders and say, let's block this road. And now someone said, let's move them from this road and put them somewhere else. So that speaks to what we call a planning conundrum. Had informal economy or informal sector been thought about in terms of planning, they would not have been placed in that road there. So the issue is that there has to be strategic thinking and then including of traders in the urban planning, so that you give them permanent structures, so that don't decide the next morning to say, let's move them and put them somewhere in Kulmane or Mbafayo Islanders. So our view is that it is an issue of planning. So whether we accept that or not, to us, is not very important. What is important is for us that Bulawayo City Council must actually put structures that are permanent. We know that people have been trading in 5th Avenue. People have been making livelihoods at 5th Avenue. It has been their source of life. They've been trading there for over the years now. Those people are going to be affected by the relocation. That as it may, there are traders also who are based in the townships, Mr. Ndebele. We have been commuting every day, early morning, going to town to get vegetable supplies from the markets. Those people have been saying that we get mugged in the morning, we get insulted in community buses. Licensing, we have to come into town to queue at Dark Mall, those who know Bulawayo, to get licenses. We come from as far as Country Park, it's about 20 kilometers. I have to commute to town. I spend a lot of money going to get services for my business. BCC must bring some of those services closer to us, including the farm produce markets. So this issue has its side of those that have been affected, and the other side is saying this is a welcome development. So as an organization, we have members who are trading at 5th Avenue, we have been trading there, we have members who have been trading in the townships, who are welcoming this move, where others are crying and say that this has affected us. But the long and short is that it is a planning issue. We need to think about how we include human trading in urban planning, so that people have permanent structure, so that they move left, right, and center as and when authorities think it's or they so wish.
So the council is arguing that this is part of their plan of the smart cities and decongesting the city center. What's your comment on that?
Perhaps maybe they've seen the light. I argued when I started that my point of departure was that in our view there is a problem with city planning and designing in Bulawayo. Actually, even if you look at the type of what we call a trading space, it's a bay, it's 1 by or 2 by square meters that is drawn on the ground. And in our view is that we need to dignify the issue of trade. Give people something that is dignified. If it's a trading space, it must be dignified, not than to be just throwing things on the floor or on the surface. So if maybe they are now moving towards what they are calling smart cities, perhaps they are beginning to implement or to take on board some of our proposals that have been putting across. Just to say that what we have done in Zenzele is that we've not even only lobbied. I mean, we're not only lobbied, but we've actually been produced prototypes that we have taken to Bylaws City Council and say that our view is that we are proposing some of these designs as you think about putting structures for traders, whether in the township, whether in the CPT or anywhere, or if it's a new satellite town that they're going to establish here. Think about some of these ideas that we think are responsive to the issues of traders, and also what we want to call a smart cities, the modern structures that are responsive to the current trends and current needs of traders.
So we talk about consultation most of the time, is that people need to be consulted and all this kind of thing. Were the vendors consulted about this move to remove them from the city center?
As far as we're concerned, I think if you're listening well, I said that we've been lobbying and arguing with Bylaws City Council to include traders in city planning and designing. So for us, it has been an ongoing conversation with Bylaws City Council. That is why I'm saying to you, we've even submitted our prototypes, our designs. So we have been having this conversation. So for those that perhaps were not consulted, maybe other associations, because we are not the only association in Bulawayo, there are a number of them. But as far as PPT is concerned, we've been having meetings with BCC, presenting some of these plans, talking about this, even producing a model law that speaks to even infrastructure, that we're saying that it must be inclusive, and when you're planning, your technocrats, your experts must not sit in their air-conditioned offices. They must call for a meeting, ask traders to say, we want to establish a new market. What is that you want in that market? And then people input. And we believe that's those conversations as far as we're concerned.
One of the issues when it comes to vendors, I think it's a new phenomenon. New, not as in yesterday, but maybe the 90s thing. And if you look at most of the bylaws that the council uses were basically inherited from the colonial era. Have you seen a move to try and accommodate vendors in the city council bylaws?
That's Ndebele. Again, I touched that when I said that we've actually been proposed a model bylaw. What we have done is that you're right that the laws that actually governing the informal sector in Zimbabwe and Bylaws City Council included, they were put in place during the colonial period, which is very true. And we have raised that issue, but not set and said, waiting for BCC or government to act. But we actually produced a model law and took that law to Bylaws City Council, handed it over to the office of the mayor and also the office of the town clerk. And what they've done is they did their own, what is called a tick box kind of comparison with their own draft, what we proposed. And then after that, then they submitted their draft, having looked at what we proposed, and perhaps some of the issues that we raised, they were considered. So in our view, the bylaws are old, they need to be reviewed, but we have not said only to say BCC must review. We have actually produced the bylaws, the model bylaws, and submitted our proposals. So we hope that the government will approve what BCC sent, because the approval is long overdue. They were sent sometime last year, and today it's almost mid-year. We haven't got any feedback. But as far as we're concerned, the review, the reformation or the reform of the bylaws must be done like yesterday.
We usually hear a lot about corruption in the allocation of bays and licensing. How prevalent is this issue of corruption?
Well, the corruption is pervasive in the sector. As a matter of fact, in the allocation of trading spaces, where some unscrupulous officers connive with traders, and then they give each other those lucrative spaces. But currently, what we have received from Bylaws City Council is that they have introduced some application form under the new regime of reallocation, or the decentralization process that they're talking about, where our members are supposed to complete the form and then send to BCC, and also we send a list of those that have applied. So our hope is that they're going to use the list that we have sent and also the forms to properly allocate the trading spaces. But corruption is very pervasive. It is a fact. And even also with the allegations of municipal police officers demanding bribes from some traders. So corruption is very rife in this sector. And not only that, even some people, some producers who can bring trucks even at night, park anywhere, when maybe they are asked, they bribe so that they are allowed to sell whatever they want. So corruption is very pervasive in the sector, as a matter of fact.
You know, some experts have always argued that women are affected more than men when it comes to issues of vending and corruption. Have you seen this in your sector? How does all these things affect women?
Yes, it's very, very prevalent. I'll start from a vendor in the city who is sitting somewhere selling tomatoes. Sometimes, although some scrupulous authorities or municipal police officers, or whatever the case might be, they solicit for social favors for them to be able to trade whatever they're trading. We've had all those allegations coming from traders. Those actually who are doing what is called informal cross-border trading, maybe crossing borders before the lockdown. Some of them actually even accused authorities in some instances where they demand social favors for them to be able to cross with their goods. So we had all these cases. Actually, there's documented research. If you check, I think it's UN Women, I think the 2012 document also. If you read that document, also it speaks to some of the issues that are issues of violence against women, social abuse of women in the informal sector. So it's very prevalent in the sector, and we've been actually lobbying the authorities to try and put mechanisms in place that actually ensure that people raise alarm when some of these cases do occur, and even actually educating women about their rights, that they should be able to report, expose. These days we've got cell phones that can actually record or take videos as evidence. But issues of social abuse, they are very stigmatized. So women usually don't come forward to report some of those cases. But behind the scenes, we hear the cases are actually very prevalent in the sector. But for people to come out open, it's a challenge. But that is why we're saying that we're trying also to raise awareness, to educate them about their rights, so that they're able to, maybe in the future, they're able to speak out and maybe get the culprits brought to book.
If you are joining us, or if you're just joining us, this is the Breakfast Club, and today we are talking to the Executive Director of BVTA, where we are talking about the issue of vending and the recent changes and the plans by the City Council to relocate some of the vendors who are vending in town to western suburbs. This is the program that is brought to you by Transparency International Zimbabwe. And when one of the issues that recently the City Council announced that bulk ordering or bulk selling of vegetables and farm produce is going to be done in selected areas in western suburbs. Has this move been implemented?
I saw a report, a media report yesterday, or it is a statement, if I'm right, from BCC. I have not moved around to check if it has been implemented, but I saw a press statement And also I saw an article, I think today, in one of the newspapers. So I'll be moving around to check if it's functional and how people are responding and whether it's servicing people well and also their challenges. And then we'll be giving Bylaws feedback in that regard.
You mentioned that some of the women from these western suburbs will be complaining that they are mugged when they're going to town early in the morning, they're insulted in the ETs. So is this a good move to actually take the bulk sellers to where they are?
It is a positive move, even in the context of the COVID-19, where imagine a woman with boxes, or even a man with boxes and cabbages, vegetables, in the bus, in the Zupco bus, going to order, we're queuing in town, queuing, you know that buses are very few these days, queuing for 3 hours to go and order in town. So for me, under these circumstances, and also even for our organization, we think that this is a step in the right direction. And I spoke to the issues of bringing services closer to the trader. Even if you look at the amenities in these trading spaces, toilets, access to water. In the townships, if you compare with traders in town, you see that toilets in towns, most of them were closed, were locked. If you go to shopping centers and check the toilets, are value. But if you check in town, of course there are challenges here and there. So there's a sense that some vendors are arguing that there seem to be neglect of traders in the townships as compared to traders who are trading in the CBD. Of course, there are traders who are trading both, who are doing actually trading in the townships and also in the CBD. So in that regard, they feel that this move will at least ensure BCC pays attention to their issues also in the townships. I spoke about issue of licensing. They've been arguing about decentralizing licensing to housing offices because they've been coming to town. So if BCC is taking the bulk deliveries into close to them, obviously licensing has to also to be close to them. There won't be any need for to commute from the townships to town to get licensed and then go and order things in the township. So in that regard, I think it's a positive a move. But like I said, it has also implications for those that have been trading in town. Inevitably, they are going to be affected by this new shift.
Yeah, we've been in lockdown for almost a month now. Although we're a bit relaxed, but we can say, vending is still not allowed in many areas. How has this affected your members?
The situation is dire. People have been heavily affected by the lockdown. Sadly, that the government has not even made a move to try and at least open the trading for informal traders, even maybe under control kind of conditions. It's very sad because the employment percentage in Zimbabwe, the number of people that are employed in Zimbabwe, is very, very low. We're actually formally employed, and we're about 90% of people working in the informal sector. And if you are not then allowing them to work, you are saying almost 90% are going to be starving. And as a matter of fact, people are struggling, people are suffering. People are now relying on what you see coming from South Africa through these agents who are bringing food, from outside the country. That's why you see queues at these food delivery, agencies. So people are suffering, and our plea is that the government must put in place mechanisms to allow people to open, maybe even under kind of controlled conditions. We're even prepared to suggest, we've seen ideas from India, how they open their markets, maintaining the physical distance, what people are calling social distance. Those things could be applied if working with associations, if people be able to trade, because people are relying on trade and people are really struggling within the households. Yeah. And even the cushioning fund that the government had promised has not yet been released. So people have been waiting for a month, like you rightly put it, that the government pledged to disperse some cushioning fund of about, then it was said it's 200, and we are told now it's 300, but no one has received. We keep on getting promises after promises and excuses and other back and forth. So people are very suffering right now in their households, and we hope that the government will listen to what we are saying, that open the markets, allow people to be controlled, invite associations to help in terms of managing the trading spaces. Maybe by so doing, that will also help in terms of reducing the spread of the virus.
There's also cross-border trading, which has been mainly assisting a lot of people here, because most of our people are selling in flea markets and they're ordering stuff in South Africa. And with this lockdown, that means people cannot trade. How is that affecting our livelihoods?
Yeah, the ICPT sector has been hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, because the travel embargoes, borders have been closed. So people now can't go and buy things out of the country, or go and sell things, or buy raw materials and bring for producing goods in the country. So the ICPT sector is the hardest hit by the COVID-19 lockdowns. But we have not just sat and cried and said that because borders are closed, people just sit at home and relax and wait for the borders to open. We have actually said this is a new reality. This could be a new way of life, because scientists are telling us that COVID-19 could be here to stay for the next maybe 2 years or more. And how do we then survive under those conditions? So what we've said, let's have a new strategy. We're trying to encourage our members to begin to produce goods and sell locally. So try and come together as groups and see what we can produce, and create a community of buyers among themselves, sell and buy amongst each other. I think maybe you've seen women producing detergents, products, cordial juices and other products. People can come together, produce those and sell to each other, even begin to supply the market. So this is actually challenging us to, I would say, summon our ingenuity to see how we can cope or survive under this condition, and to try and say, want to borders to be open to go and buy. What if borders are not open? What if the virus continues, to spread and borders continue to be closed? So we need them to say, let's find a way to survive. It's a new reality, it's a new way of life, it's a paradigm shift in terms of how things are done. Let's survive under these conditions.
Finally, what's the way forward for vendors? Do you think there's a bright future? You think the future is gloom? How do you see vending and vendors in the next year or two?
Yeah, I think I've just touched on the issue of adapting to the new reality, coming up with strategies to survive. And one of the things moving ahead is to embrace ICTs, or the fourth industrial revolution. We need to begin to think about how we can start selling online, because maybe the physical contact will be reduced. So it speaks to issues of dealing with issues of cost of data, because traders are also now selling using data, using internet. So the cost of data must be dealt with. We need then to begin to support people to produce goods, startups. We need to help people with standardization of goods. People like us, people producing detergents, among other goods. Those products must actually be standardized so they actually meet the market expectations. Maybe traders think about franchising, so they actually begin to run their own businesses. So that is the new reality that we need to think about. That is the future. Maybe the issue of sitting with a box of tomatoes or going to buy things in Botswana, South Africa, wherever, maybe it's a thing of the past. Maybe it don't happen in the foreseeable future. So we need then to say, how do we then function as us? And these are ideas that we're trying to pursue with the traders and say, let's shift the way we do things, let's change the way we do things, and begin to function under this new reality.
Okay, thank you very much for those insightful thoughts on how people should adapt, because probably COVID is here for a long time, and people need to come out of the houses, do business, but do it differently, or we need to adapt to the changes, because if we still have COVID for a year from now, we can't really lock down ourselves in the houses forever. We need to find ways. So that was Michael Ndiweni, who's the Executive Director of the Bulawayo Vendors and Traders Association, talking to us about some issues that involve vendors as well, because they are mostly the people who have been hard hit by the lockdown, because up to now they still are closed, so there's hardly any trading that is going to town, because their trade involves them being in the public, interacting with people, and this era of social distancing, it becomes quite difficult. But we also talked about the issue of the relocation of vendors from town, especially 5 Avenue to other areas in the western suburbs. We know it was a hot issue, with some people saying it was unfair because they were going to lose business, while others were saying it is a welcome move because now they're going to reduce transport costs for coming to town every day. We hope at the end of the day there will be a solution that will help the vendors, make a living, because we know many people in our city, in our country, survive by vending. My name is Zenzele Ndebele. Till we meet again tomorrow, have a good day.